Welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I'm your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride is Mitch Grawl and Dean Chambers. How we doing tonight, fellas?
Very good.
Yeah, right here, ready to roll.
All righty. So, week 5 is in the books, and we're going to go through the games. We're not going to talk about what's going on in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to leave that alone. There were some teams that had some upsets, a couple little upsets, and some teams that we didn't think they were going to lose as big as they did, but it happened. Middle segment, we're going to talk about. I think we discussed about the attributes. We're going to dig into that a little bit more. I believe that was a forum question that was posted, right, Dean?
Yes.
All right, so we'll talk about one of the forum questions that was asked related to the attributes, and we'll go through the where we're at in the league stand as far as our picks, and then we'll go through our picks for upcoming Week 6 games. So, with all that on the list, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. First game that we have on our list for this week, we have the New York Jets hosting the New England Patriots. Both teams came in undefeated, and we were thinking that New England was going to make a statement, and boy, did they, but it was not the statement that we were expecting, as the Jets walked away 56-0. We are going to start with you, Mitch.
Yeah, wow. It's tough to beat a team that has a quarterback that throws 6 touchdowns, and that would be Mac Jones for the New York Jets. Just a absolutely huge game, and in fact, he added another touchdown on the ground for a total of 7 touchdowns. So you have a quarterback that's giving you that kind of output. Yeah, you're going to be tough to beat. On the flip side, woo-wee, man, Gerard Evans, 5 picks. It was almost as if the Jets knew exactly what plays New England was going to run and had somebody right there ready to catch the ball out there. And I was looking, since we were having some debate on the forum about all these first-round tight ends on Cleveland's roster. I'm sorry, not Cleveland, but New England's roster. I was looking to see how Kyle Pitts and Irv Smith Jr. did, and it looks like they combined for 1 catch in this game. So not sure what's going on with the offensive play calling with all that firepower on the tight end and the tight end room. But anyway, what do you think, Dean?
You're not suggesting that the Jets were sending people to New England games and stealing their signals, are you?
Nah, that might have been the way they were lined up against a lot of those pass plays.
The replay of the alleged scandal in Michigan going on right now?
Yeah, maybe. Well, I mean, New England did that, in the Belichick.
They did that and got slightly
right?
got fined a little bit, and that was it.
Yeah.
So-called Seagate scandal. Yeah, I'm looking at these numbers of Mac Jones. I mean, he couldn't throw a bad pass. He completed 78% of his passing, 6 touchdown passes. And Isabella, as a wide receiver, had a run for a touchdown. I guess the Jets must have called like one of those, those plays where they pitch to a wide receiver and run him.
Yeah.
That's just kind of interesting. A little trickery, a little razzle dazzle by the Jets. I mean, the Jets did everything. This was a pretty brutal, severe beatdown of the Patriots. I mean, I picked the Jets to win and cover the spread, and I think the spread was like 13.5. I didn't pick the Jets to cover the spread 4 times over, though. This is pretty brutal. This was definitely a statement. That the Jets are saying, "Yeah, we're not impressed with that 4-0 record by New England." We're just.
I think it was a fraud alert in this game. I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
Actually, I was surprised. I thought that Mox was going to put up much better numbers, much higher numbers. Just like the Jets scored through for 5 touchdowns, um, New England threw for 5 picks. So
Yeah.
I guess they were saying, "Hey, you can throw touchdowns, I can throw interceptions."
Yeah,
I,
this comes after that close call against Minnesota. So I think the Jets say, last week was kind of a close call. It's be a wake up call. We need to step it up this week, and they sure did.
yeah, I think so. It was like, yeah, let me show you guys who we really are. So um, I did not expect that at all from Mox.
It was almost as if the Jets were on a mission this week, Mark.
Yes, yes. They were like, okay, you guys been in our league long enough, or in our realm long enough. Let us show you who we really are. Um, yeah, that was a defining victory right there. So, moving
Speaking of
on.
missions,
Yeah, next
speaking
game.
of missions,
Yep. And speaking of that, we have Kansas City hosting LA, and that was predicted to be a close game, and it was. But LA ended up walking away with a 17-13 victory. Dean.
well, yeah, I'm surprised that Steve went with Justin Herbert at quarterback. He didn't stay the course and stay with his proven leader, Deshaun Kaiser. But they were still on a mission to win. And, I'm seeing 3 turnovers that were probably a big factor in this game. And, 17-13 was a fairly low scoring defensive struggle. And none of these numbers are looking all that impressive on offense for the Chargers. But, they got the job done. I mean, total of 237 yards offense, not a whole lot. Kansas City had 298, but detract from that 3 turnovers, and that leads to Kansas City only scoring 13 points. So I think it was a very important win for the Chargers. It moves them to a tie at 3-2 in the standings, and you can get to the playoffs with a wild card spot, but especially in that division, you really want to win the division. And the Chargers taking their first step towards trying to defend that division championship.
All right, Coach. What happened?
Yeah. Well, as Dean said, it was a tough game, and yeah, you look at the offensive output for the Chargers, and you go, "Gosh, how did they score 17 points?" Well, that's because their defense scored 7 points. Yeah, those turnovers were killers for me. The one, um, well, it's funny because the one that was the killer turnover, which was the pick six, it was actually set up because. I fumbled a shotgun snap on first down on the 20-yard line, which led to a 9-yard sack. So my second 19, um, Mayfield threw a timing pass right to Humphreys, and he picked it off on the sideline and took it into the end zone. So even when I didn't turn the ball over, I still had some fumbles that screwed up my rhythm of my offense. But um, you know, you move on. It's a tough game, a tough divisional rival, a lot of fun, and I'm sure it'll be another rock'em sock'em game in a few weeks when we match up again in Los Angeles.
All
And if
right.
you look at what Herbert did, he completed 43% of his passes, no touchdown passes, only 125 yards. I think I fired a quarterback before for performing like that, and yet he somehow won the game.
Yeah, Well, actually, I think Humphreys won the game. He had two interceptions and a pick six.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Humphreys won that game for uh, for Los Angeles.
Well,
That's why he's player of the game. Uh,
yeah, so he did. Yeah, he's the player of the game. So
yeah, yeah.
All right. Next game we have Indianapolis hosting Minnesota, a low scoring game, and Indy walked away with this one 16-9. Mitch.
Well, I tell you what, that was kind of like watching that. I'm trying to remember thinking of the game, the game this weekend that I was watching where it was anyway, I can't remember, but yeah, a very very sluggish game on offense for Minnesota. Indianapolis put up some yardage, but they really didn't put up a whole lot of points out there. They had a couple of turnovers, which always kind of will mess up a drive. But it's you know again another defensive back wins the player of the game out there, and so. Yeah, this week some of the offensive performances were a little slow. I will say the highlight of this game is that both kickers were flawless. They were both 3 for 3 in field goals, and even though we've moved on from that Kansas City Los Angeles game, I just want to highlight that Kansas City kicker was 2 for 2 in field goals and actually made one over 40 yards. So just to bring that to light. But Dean, what do you think of this game?
Yeah, I had called for the Vikings to win and cover. I was riding the Barney train last week, and I think with Indianapolis, some weeks they're very solid, and some weeks they don't play as well, so you don't know which team you're getting. And this week they showed up. They played very well, and their defense is very good. They held Minnesota to just the three field goals. They kicked 3 field goals themselves and did manage to get one touchdown rather. So, it was enough to win. And I think it was important for them to win because they've gotten off to a bit of a slow start in the season. And this win, you could say maybe is more important than them, although I think Minnesota would disagree. But, it was definitely important for their effort to try to get back to the playoffs this season to win this game, and they did.
Yep.
Okay. Next game that we have on our list as we are running through this, we have Pittsburgh going in to play Jacksonville, and I knew it was going to be a close game, but we were predicting it was going to be a close game, but that was anything but. As Pittsburgh walked away with a 27-7 victory, we are going to start with Dean.
Yeah, I have to start thinking that the Jacksonville is going to be competitive and that they're not otherwise going to go back to their usual form and lose 13 or 14 games, because I had predicted that the Steelers would win and not cover the spread, and they more than covered the spread and easily beat Jacksonville by 20 points. I mean, they had over 400 yards of offense. They had not a huge amount, but a good amount of rushing, solid passing, and had 2 different quarterbacks play, and they both did fairly well. So, Pittsburgh more than covered the spread, and although Jacksonville looked to be a little bit more competitive the first couple of weeks, I think we're going to see Jacksonville do what we generally expect them to do, and that's probably lose 12 or 13 games and finish with a top 5 draft pick in the first round that they've already traded away, as many others of us have done too, and that's kind of the way it goes.
All right, Mitch, what do you got?
Yeah, not pretty if you're a Jacksonville fan. It's tough to win a game when you're outgained by your opponent by over 220 yards. I pretty much just go with what Dean said. Look, every time you think Jacksonville has figured something out, apparently a leak springs somewhere else. So let's just move on to the next one.
Do we have to?
Yeah, I think this next one, we should spend a lot of time on this next one, guys. Really dissect it.
No, we don't need to. So, Seattle Seahawks was hosting Las Vegas, and the bleeding continues. Seattle lost this one 26-3. Now, moving on to the next game, it's Washington versus Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what your offense did in that game, actually.
I'm trying to jump past it, guys. Oh my God. Okay, so yeah, Seattle.
The Raiders haven't looked this good.
Yeah, Raiders lost this game.
Marcus Allen was on the sideline.
Raiders won this game 26-3. Moving on to the next game. Mitch, go ahead and start.
Well, like I said, I don't think the Raiders have looked this good since Plunkett and Marcus Allen were on the sideline. But yeah, you know, it looks like Las Vegas went back to Trubisky this week. I know they had started Barriere, I think, a few weeks there, so that was interesting move for them. But overall, I mean, it wasn't a even though the score obviously is 26-3. It wasn't necessarily a dominant performance by Las Vegas, but it was more of Seattle kind of sputtering around, particularly on offense this past week. So I have no doubt that the Seahawks are in the lab trying to figure out a combination of success, but yeah, didn't look too hot there for the Seahawks.
No. Dean, what do you got?
Yeah, I think the key stats in this game is two numbers here: 3.7 yards average per play in rushing, and 3.5 yards average per play in passing. And as we all know, those kinds of numbers aren't going to sustain drives. And as a result, you see the big three below Seattle on the scoreboard up there. And I know that the coaching staff in Seattle will be working on that, and we'll come up with a combination of things for this coming week that will be far more effective. The time of possession was fairly even. Las Vegas put up some adequate numbers on offense, but they didn't dominate. I mean, this is definitely not a Jets type offense. They 212 yards passing and 114 in rushing. So, the Seattle defense didn't give up all that 26 points. There was a block, no, two block punts in the game. One of those block punts was scooped up by one of the Las Vegas players and run back 30-something yards or whatever for a touchdown. So this would have been a closer game if it was not for that. I mean, that might be an issue where maybe you might also want to look at your punt plan, see if maybe a different
Yeah,
play would.
yeah. I think you're using the punt play called Southern Border. I think that's the punt play you're apparently
Oh,
using.
because it just leaks.
Yeah, it just lets people right through. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Well, I'll
But I
say,
mean, Dean does make a good point, though. When you look at the offensive output from the quarterbacks, right? Both quarterbacks threw for 212 yards, but Trubisky got that 212 yards in 8 fewer attempts than Wilson got his 212,
mm.
right? So it's interesting to kind of look at.
Well, also one thing that I look at as well is, we had the one interception that we intercepted from them, but the one stat that neither one of you guys mentioned were the 8 sacks. So even though it was
Yeah,
only
yeah,
35 yards with those,
well, I noticed it after the game, but I forgot it when we are just now talking about it. But I was
yes.
like, oh,
So
the sack monster returned.
yeah.
The
So
sack
Yeah, every
monster
sack is
returned.
essentially a drive killer. So that's 8 Seattle possessions, which is probably most of them that were at least handicapped to that degree that your quarterback had an extra 7 or 8 yards to make up for in the next pass play. That's tough.
exactly. So that was the one stat that I mean, because everything was even on at time possession pretty much, but the sacks was the one thing. And again, it's just having the right plays, right selections. I think if those things were changed up and tweaked up, the outcome would be better. But hey, we're not
It'd be
giving
much
up.
better.
If it doesn't
You
kill
have
you, it
that
makes you
fixed.
stronger.
Yeah, I mean, you win your next 5 games, you're going to be 5-5 and
Yeah,
in contention.
Yeah.
yeah.
So.
Hey, what do you do? Oh, yeah. Hey, if you win your next 11 games, you're in
Hmm.
good shape. Yeah,
Yeah, I win the next 11 games. All you guys be shaking your head like, what the heck?
yeah. If you win the next 7 games, I'll start my own podcast.
There you go.
So,
There's nothing, there's nothing
You
to
guys see,
it.
you guys see what what I have to deal with here. You guys just, yeah. See, this is what I have to deal. And see, Dean plays. He's the good cop, so he's kind of like, okay, guys, keep it kind of
yeah.
calm. See,
Oh,
Mm-mm-mm. right.
Dirty
Moving
cop.
on.
There
Moving
you go. Yeah,
on.
dirty cop.
Yeah. We have Washington hosting Atlanta. That was another game that we had, and Washington ended up taking this game 49-30. Mitch, what do you got?
Well, I think we thought it was going to be a little bit less points put up in this game from both teams. You know, I would have taken the under if you'd have said, "Hey, 79 points for for Washington and Atlanta." But yeah, the offenses were definitely on the move in this game. But you know, I would say that Washington definitely had some more balance on that offense. You know, with combining there for 261 in the air and another 157 on the ground. But what was interesting is that of their 7 touchdowns, it was almost split, four through the air and 3 on the ground out there. So again, very balanced. Where Atlanta was a little bit more one-dimensional. I know
Mm-hmm.
typically Atlanta has, when they're more balanced, they tend to their defense plays better. You know, they're not their defense isn't on the field as much when they're more balanced. So I think that led to especially to some second half points there for Washington. But you know, definitely was much more of a shootout than I was anticipating for sure.
All right, Coach. What's happened over there, Coach Chambers?
Well, I'm going to answer your question with a question. It's not about the offenses being in the move. It's about what was not on the move. And what did I say before we started the game? Do you remember?
Uh, your defense would need to show up.
Right, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the story of the game. 30 points should be plenty of points to win a game. Look at this week's and most weeks' scores. 30 points usually wins your game. You can't win the game if you give up 49 points, 7 touchdowns. I mean, my defense didn't stop much of anything. They got a couple defensive stops in the second half, and by that point, the score was already obscene. I mean, the defense has to show up in the first half and actually get some stops. Otherwise, it's not. We can talk about that more in the middle segment, and that's part of what I'm going to discuss there because I've realized what's going on as I've been dealing with the first 5 weeks of the season and trying to coach this defensive team that's just not very good. So we'll talk about that more in the second segment of the show.
Okay. Next game that all right. Next game that we have for this week, we have Chicago hosting San Francisco, and Chicago walking away with a 31-23 victory. Dean.
Yeah, I had picked Chicago to win and cover, and San Francisco played them surprisingly tough. And I remember as I watched the game, San Francisco for most of the game looked like they had a shot at winning, and Chicago pulled ahead in the end and held on to the win. But this looked like it could go either way, and statistically it's fairly even and a good amount of points for not a whole lot of yards gained. But it was a key win for Chicago. They needed that win, and I believe they're 3-2 now because they went into this 2-2.
Yep.
So I don't think Chicago is used to being 2-2 after 4 weeks most seasons. Although sometimes they do have a couple early season losses and recover from it. That may be what's happening this year, because they every season Chicago doesn't end up winning the Super Bowl, which has been lots of them. They always play hard and win a lot of games, try to get back to it the next year, and I'm sure this season will be no difference. But it was an important win for them.
Yep. Mitch, what do you got?
Yeah, I think some of that the yardage that you're talking about was impacted by the return yards. I think both teams, were close to 200 yards in the total return yards and average close to 30 yards or so, particularly Chicago, 30 yards of return. So, I think the weather, some of the wind there in Chicago has something to do with that. But, Not a surprise that Chicago won the game, but um, yeah, I think that they're getting their engines cranked back up again. So I expect to see a nice little run here from Chicago and try to put some distance between themselves and their divisional rivals.
All right. Coming down to our last two games, we have the New York Giants hosting the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints ended up winning this game 31-23. Mitch.
Man, I tell you what, you look at this right, unless you actually watch the game, you look at the stat line and you're like, how in the world did a team that only generated 15 first downs, that fumbled the ball three times, but did not lose those fumbles, by the way, but just fumbled three times, gave up 500 yards of offense to their opponent?
Two
How did they
sacks.
win this game? Yeah, how in the world did they win this game? But when you've got a quarterback that throws for 331 yards on just 15 completions, yeah, that's right, 331 on 15 completions and three
Good
touchdowns.
points.
You don't have to sustain drives. You're doing one pass and you're there's a drive.
Yep.
So that goes back to what Dean was saying a little bit earlier. Um, yeah, sometimes you gotta stretch that ball down the field a little bit, and Thorson absolutely chunked that Thor hammer up and down the field, and they didn't need drives. They just needed two or three plays at a time, and they were done. So good game for New Orleans.
All right. Dean, what do you got?
Well, this came up in an email back and forth I had with someone. I said, the Giants are 1-4. Yeah, they were 8-8 and made the playoffs. So he said, how did they start 1-4? And this person who I named said, well, the Giants went 1-1 against you. They lost to Washington. They lost to the Saints. And he said, well, that's normal. That's what the Giants normally do. So part of it is maybe it's a little bit of a tough schedule to start with because the Giants started the season with 2 games against Atlanta, 2 games against Washington, and a game against the Saints, a team that's made the playoffs in the last couple of years. And that, last season the Giants went 8-8. They could still go 8-8 this year, but it's just kind of a tough start for them. And and again in this game, they gain over 500 yards of offense, but don't translate that to more than 23 points. And the Saints offense had some big plays that set up some of those scores. When again, as Mitch said, when you're completing over 300 yards passing on 15 completions, that's over 20 yards per completion. That's pretty impressive for a passing game, and it does tend to lead to scoring on fewer yards, and you see that. The Saints came up with 31 points to beat the Giants by 8.
All right. Last game that we have for week 5, we have Detroit hosting Anaheim, and Detroit ended up winning this game 26-17. Dean.
Yeah, Anaheim has been looking pretty solid the first 4 weeks on defense and won some close defensive struggles, but Detroit figured out a way to score some points against that defense, and I think Anaheim will be kind of re-examining what they're doing in defense and come up with something different this coming week. And Detroit had looked fairly weak in the first few weeks of the season. Is now thinking they might be able to string together some wins and have a chance at making the postseason this year. So that remains to be seen, but this was definitely a good win for them.
All right. So that wraps up this week's games that we had on our list. And we are going to move on over to our middle segment, which was our topic about attributes. There was a question that was posted on the forum, and we're going to kind of kick that around a little bit. Trying to pull up, unless you guys have it, the actual question that we're going to pose.
Yeah, well, I can
Yeah,
tell you why I suggested this topic.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and take a
There's
go
been
ahead and run
some
with it.
ongoing there's been some ongoing debate in the emails and on the forum about whether there's enough differentiation on our ratings and or whether the differences are significant. And you know that Jerry many times has said that not so fast in this idea that the ratings are all the same or too similar, that these 1 or 2 points in different key skill areas of these players make a difference and make a difference in plays that ultimately decide games. And as I've been coaching my own team in the first 5 weeks, I realized that the defense is struggling to slow down the other teams. I see it in my own sims. I see it in my own practice games. We clearly saw it in my game against Washington this past week. And what I've realized, and this is kind of a shortcoming in what I've been doing as general manager, that I've made some trades and made some moves, and some of my players on defense, namely the defensive line and the cornerbacks, those groups as position groups have gotten a bit weaker, and at times I've put a player at a certain position or traded for someone and think, okay, yeah, he's a point lower than this or a point lower than that. Or one of the cornerbacks I drafted has lower endurance, and that's something that shouldn't be ignored, because those 1 or 2 points in these ratings that Jerry has been talking about making a difference, I'm realizing really do make a difference. And this game is case in point. I think I put together a pretty solid game plan as far as the plays I selected. There were many cases, as we saw in the game, where I had players in position that didn't make plays. Tackles were broken. Cornerbacks were beaten by 1 or 2 yards by his receivers that were easily opened rather than incomplete passes. So I had the right plays in position where the players were in the position they had to be to make plays, but the plays didn't happen. And I've kind of re-examined my defensive roster, and I realized that in some of these cases where I thought this player would be good enough, that player would be good enough, because, he's only 1 point less endurance, or he's just 1 point less in acceleration, or 1 point less in 2 points less in strength, and I thought these players are good enough. Well, too many of those spots on the defensive roster held by players that I thought were, quote, good enough kind of accumulates overall, and you see that the way my defense has played the first 5 weeks of the season, having given up 162 points. That's more than 30. That's like 33, 34 points per game. It's clear that no matter how good a game plan I can put together, these players aren't getting the job done, because I'm realizing that Jerry is right. These players that are 1 or 2 points off here and there that I think are good enough, those differences make all the difference. And we saw that in this game. My defense gives up 49 points to Washington. So it's hard to argue that Jerry is not right in what he's been saying about these player ratings. And I think especially as it regards to my defensive team, my offensive team scored 30 points. That's not bad. 30 points should win you a game. But when your defense is giving up 49 points, and I guarantee you, I put that defensive game plan that I used, you put that on Jerry's defense and have him play that defense, it's not going to give up 49 points. Not even to my team, not to Kansas City, not to even the Jets. So I think what it shows is kind of the hard learning of that lesson. What Jerry has been saying about these ratings and why these 1 or 2 points in key skill ratings do make a difference, they really do make a difference. And this game was kind of case in point for that. My defense gave up 49 points.
Yeah.
So
those
we're
one
gonna
to,
see
so
this
those
coming
1 to
week.
2 points can definitely, you think, oh, it's only 1 or 2 points. It makes a big difference.
Right. Yeah, and we're going to see this week what my defense does against Detroit. One of the weaker as it regards talent. I'm not making a commentary about James's game plans. I'm talking about the roster talent he has on offense is probably one of the weaker teams in the league. His defense is very good talent. He's loaded the defense up with first and second round picks at pretty much all the starting positions. I mean, he has like 5 first-round talents at cornerback, a few first-round talents at defensive end, solid defensive tackles, and some good linebackers and some good safeties.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to see what my defense does in trying to contain his offense. If my defense gives up 30 or more points this weekend, I think it will pretty clearly indicate the problem with this team right now.
All right. Mitch, what's your take on this?
Well, some of the things that Dean said, I agree with. Others, I disagree with. I'd say that what I agree with is yes, if you have a roster of players that tend to be 1 or 2 points below in a lot of different categories than your opponents on an individual basis, that does add up to a large point differential between teams. And yeah, that does make an impact on the game and on gameplay and whatnot. Certainly it would. However, and what I disagree, I guess what I do disagree with is that I don't. Even with that being said, the players are so close in skill that the whether if you're scoring 49, 50 points, well, like we had the Jets, right? Scoring 56 points on a team, giving up none, and a quarterback that is, at least based on my scale, rated as the 30th rated quarterback based on actuals, far below many other starters in this league, is able to throw for 300 plus yards each week. Scored 7 touchdowns this past week, multiple Player of the Weeks, Super Bowl MVP if I remember right. It goes back to with the ratings so narrowed together. It truly does go back to how coaches game plan and coordinate plays that match up against their opponent's plays on a situation by situation basis. If you lose by 56 points, if you lose by 21, 28 points, whatever the case might be, your game plan somewhere it didn't match up well to your opponent. Yeah, I know that with the differentiation, yeah, it could be a touchdown difference, which definitely can be difference between winning and losing. Absolutely, I agree with that. But if you're getting blown out, or you're, if you're scoring a lot of points but also giving up a lot of points, like I've done a few games this year, that means, hey, I did a pretty good job in my scouting and preparation on offense, but I didn't do so well on defense, and vice versa. So I still think there's room for differentiation out there. I guess that's my thought.
I say no so fast to some that you mentioned the quarterback position, and I know that Steve has posted on the forum that maybe the quarterback makes less difference than we think it does. And I believe you're talking about the Jets quarterback being ranked 30th, putting up 7 touchdowns. But the difference is that quarterback is surrounded by an offensive team that's solid talent at every position. So a quarterback can still succeed in that situation. I think we're looking at with my team is that there's too many players that are below the median and talent level on my defense, and that isn't making a little bit of difference. So the amount of differentiation isn't as small as one may think, because when your team gives up 49 points, that's not a small amount of differentiation. Otherwise, if the talent level was that small, then it should make a difference. Oh, your defense gave up 33 points instead of 27. No, it gave up 49.
Right. That's why I say somewhere your game plan was not as good as you thought it was.
No, the game plan was solid. I identified the best place by the data that should have done well against Washington, and they should have in this instance. I mean, I can show you the data, and I guarantee you match up that game plan I had with the defensive talent on the Jets, and they would not give up 49 points to Washington's offense. So
Well,
there's more
just to provide some additional context here as well. The Jets quarterback is the 30th rated quarterback. The wide receiver group is rated 6th, so not even in the top 5.
What I'm saying is,
Sixth. Let's see. Half the running backs for the Jets, they're rated. Oh gosh, I gotta look all the way down to find the halfbacks here. That would be 16th in the league in halfback talent. Offensive line, middle of the road. So so the Jets are overcoming some average talent in some areas with some pretty good coaching. So
right. Tell me what my cornerbacks and defensive line rank, though, while you're at it.
let's see. Cornerbacks for Atlanta. Let's see. You are 16th in cornerbacks.
Yeah, you can't overcome that when you're giving up 300 yards passing per game.
Let's see.
No matter what defensive plays you put in place.
Well, we'll just have to agree to disagree on that.
And what am I defensive?
Because even at 16th, your average points based on my scale per player is 83.28. The number one team, Chicago, on average, their players rate out to 83.8. We're talking basically not even 0.6.
Yeah, but what's lost in those numbers? What's lost in those numbers, and this is what makes a difference. You look at it. When I look at Jerry's cornerbacks, they're all 87 endurance. Mm-hmm. And a point or two in endurance is a point or two in the first 5 ratings. So when you have a cornerback that's 85 endurance that I made the mistake of drafting, that player is basically a few plays later 2 points lower in all of those ratings than the guy that's 87 endurance. So that's just not a difference of like 83 something versus 82 something. It's more like a difference of 83 something to like 78 something, because the lower endurance lowers the first 5 ratings as they play longer.
Makes you wonder how he gave up 30 points to you then.
Well, that's how I gave up 49 points to him. That's what I'm telling you, that talent level at some of those key spots is greater than just that 1 point of difference per player you're citing, or whatever it is. It's much greater than that. And it's not just one position, not just one cornerback position that probably underperforms. It's a few cornerback positions, a few defensive line positions. So that's how you're looking at a defense with a very solid game plan gives up 49 points instead of maybe 29. They're giving up 29 points. I win the game by 1 point. And 29 is still a lot to give up.
Which is why, as I said in the forum, this is why so many folks are concerned about even having even slightly higher variation in ratings, because if this is the case and the reason why you gave up 49 was because of a 0.6 difference in player, imagine that was 1.5. Yeah, I guess in that case you'd have lost 100 to 20, 100 to 30. So
points defense. So that's the thing, and we saw that in the XFBS that Steve ran. The greater differentiation of results led to 100-point scores, and we don't want to see that in the PNFL. And I think we need to be and that's why Charlie, and I'll praise what Charlie's doing. He's taking an evolutionary rather than revolutionary approach to changing the ratings, because we don't want to suddenly start seeing ridiculous scores that are very unrealistic. I mean, 56-0 is kind of on the edge of that. I mean, we don't see that often in the NFL, other than, of course, the Miami versus Denver game, but typically we don't see that.
And yet, New England's offensive players rate a lot higher than the Jets, and yet they score nothing. So
Well, in that case, I think it comes down to, the planning, because I think we had this discussion in one of the previous shows. You can have the best ratings out there. You can have better ratings on your team than the opposing team, but if you don't have the right plays, or better yet, the right planning, there you go. You lose every time.
Yeah, it's a
So,
combination of both. It's a combination of the game planning and the roster talent, and I think we've gone into this mode of thinking that, where it was even said that coaching is 90% and being a GM is 10%. And, it's still mostly coaching, but GMing shouldn't be dismissed. And, as we're examining my GMing and putting together this defensive team, flat out, as I realized in the first 5 weeks, there's only so much I can do with this roster talent on defense. And my team has given up, I think, 34 points per game on average and 49 against Washington. You can only make up to that. You can only make up for that lack of talent to a certain degree with your game plan and play selection. And then you realize, no, these players aren't getting the job done. You look at the game and you see tackles being broken more often. You see cornerbacks getting a couple of yards behind the receivers and getting burned more often. That's roster talent. And that comes down to how well the team owner does at being a GM and putting together a better roster of players. And it takes both. Rich won so many games, Super Bowls, because he was very good at both. I mean, he excelled at the coaching. He always put together excellent game plans, profiles. But he has solid rosters, too. He didn't do that with mediocre talent. So it does require both. I think we need to keep that in mind. And that's basically my point today in bringing up this topic. The idea that it's almost all done in game plans and profiles, not so fast. Roster talent, as Jerry has been reminding us, still matters.
Yes. Yeah. All right, guys, we're gonna put a pin in this one because we've been running with this one for a while. I mean, I'm sure we probably could have went on another 15, 20 minutes, but we need to keep this thing.
I'll just say this. I don't think anyone necessarily thinks that if you have the worst talent that you're going to necessarily, that's a good thing. But I will say that there's a small enough gap between talent that great coaching will overcome a lot of what little gaps we have. So I'll just leave it at that.
Well, great coaching can coach the best talent to an 8-8 record. I mean, great coaching can coach poor talent to maybe an 8-8 record and miss the playoffs. And I can remember one season several seasons ago when Detroit had just about the best roster in the league and went 8-8. So the best talent can certainly be undercoached, but the worst talent, no matter how much you overcoach it, you're not doing what Washington and the Jets and Chicago and some of the teams have been doing. Steve won that Super Bowl with a great coaching effort, but it wasn't inferior talent that he had on his roster. The roster was still pretty solid. So, again, it requires both. But, we want to move on to taking a look at next week's games.
There we go. Well, I'll tell you what, guys. Once this comes out, you guys want to keep up the conversation, definitely we can put it up on the forum and they can talk about it a little bit more. So, all right. So, as we move into the Week 6 games, lot to it looks like there's gonna be some good games here. Looking at this initially, overall for the season predictions, Mitch is currently at 26-19. Let's see here. Yep, 26-19, and we have. Oh, I just lost it. Dang it. Okay. Mitch is at 26-19.
Yeah, you think you said that four times.
Dean is at 21-24. Don't you start. Dean is at 21
Dean's
and 24.
21-24.
21-24. 21-24.
There
Don't
you
you
go.
start. Mark is at 25-20. So
say it again.
25 and 20.
Sorry,
25 and 20. Lead pipe lock. Mitch is at 2-3. Dean is at 1-4. I am a reverse record of Seattle at 5-0. At least I'm perfect in something positive. I wanted to say that for Mitch comes back and says, "Well, you're perfect in losses too." So I don't hear
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah, you're the
And
best 0-5
perfection
team
on
in the
both ends of
league.
the spectrum. You get
Yeah.
perfection on both ends of the spectrum.
hence the reason
Yeah.
why I call him the bad cop, guys.
Best 0-5 team in the league, Seattle.
Yeah. Anyway, so as you guys see on the screen, you see what our standings are. So as we move into the week 6 games, as you guys know, we have our lead pipe locks. So first game on the docket, we have Washington taking on the Jets. The sports books, Rich's Sports Books, who's doing a phenomenal job. He has a 6.5 point spread for the Jets. Mitch, you're the first one up.
Oh man, tough test for Washington. Um, Jets will be ready to play. I'm gonna take the Jets.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Jets.
Dean, what do you got?
Yeah, I think this would be a competitive game. And while I was tempted to think that maybe the Jets aren't going to cover that spread, it's just a touchdown. I mean, the Washington offense is good, although, we talked about how bad my defense is. But, yeah, I think the Jets are going to win and cover. I think it's reasonable to say the Jets could win this game by a touchdown to cover their 6.5 point spread.
All right. I will concur with you guys. I will keep it short and simple. I'm going with the Jets as well. Next game, we have LA hosting Indy. They are giving LA 8.5. Dean.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are going to win and cover this game. I think Indianapolis has been playing better, and I think they'll be competitive in this game. But I'm not going to quite say they're on a mission, but I think the Chargers are going to probably win by about 10 points this game and cover that spread.
Mitch.
Ooh, that's a wide spread there, but I'm not necessarily sold that Indy is Indy's for real. So I'm gonna go with Los Angeles.
All right. I have to concur with you guys as well. Um, I think LA wants to try to get back to the championship, and this is just another stepping stone. So I'm going with LA on this one.
And I suspect they'll bring Deshaun Kaiser back as a starting quarterback, and that will help too.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert just didn't get it done last week.
Yeah. Next game, we have New England hosting Jacksonville. The question I have is, how are they going to rebound from that dismantling? The sports books are giving them 7.5. Mitch.
Well, there's no better team to play when you just got crushed than Jacksonville. So I'm going to take New England.
All right. Dean.
Yeah, I completely agree. The Patriots are not only going to rebound, they're going to rebound huge. And I'm not going to go ahead and say how much they're going to win by other than cover this. But I'm so confident that Patriots are going to win and spread. I'm going to put a lead pipe lock on this for the Patriots winning this weekend.
All right. There's your lock. Next game is our pick'em game. We have Minnesota hosting Pittsburgh. Dean, what do you got?
Yeah, this is a pick'em game, and I think the Vikings will rebound from last week's tough loss, and I think Pittsburgh's a tough team to beat, but Minnesota can do it, and I think they will. It might be close, but it's no spread to cover here. Minnesota wins.
All right, Mitch.
Well, Pittsburgh has won 2 in a row. They beat Jacksonville, which is expected. They beat me. They put up some points on me there, and I think Minnesota that they tend to be more consistent on defense than I've been as of recent years. So I'm going to lean with Minnesota to take this one this week.
All right. How did I know? Because you like riding that Minnesota train. So I'm going.
Isn't that song "Midnight Train to Minnesota"? Is that
Yeah,
what that
yeah.
name of
No,
that song is?
it's supposed to be Georgia, not Minnesota.
Oh, I
In a roundabout
apologize.
way. Yeah, we'll go to we'll go to Georgia through
Midnight Train to
Minnesota.
Minneapolis, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
pretty much.
Midnight Train to Minneapolis. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
even though I'm on it this week, caution you, don't go riding that long black train.
There you go. For me this week, I'm gonna go in a different direction. I think Pittsburgh's going to kind of keep it going. I think it's going to be a close game. Obviously, it's a pick'em game, so it can go either way. I'm going with Pittsburgh, and I think they're going to show up and show out. And on top of that, I'm pushing all my chips in for this week and keep that lead pipe lock train going. And I am making them my lead pipe lock for this week. So go Pitt.
Wow.
Uh,
Betting on the Spurs to make you 6-0 on lead pipe locks.
hey, look, you gotta. Hey, I gotta be
Yeah,
bold. Gotta be bold. So,
it's plausible. It is a picking game, so
yep.
can't.
Can't get any bolder than that. So, next game we have Atlanta hosting Detroit. They are giving Atlanta 6.5. Mitch.
Well, the insiders at PNFL News got some secret dish on this game. I'm not going to say what it is, but the newsroom at PNFL News is feeling pretty confident that Detroit's going to go into Atlanta and win this game. In fact, they're so confident they're going to make this their lead pipe lock this week.
Okay, got your lead pipe lock. All right. Dean, what do you got?
I think that we have to hope this is going to be a close game, but no, that spread, I don't know what that's based on. My team is notoriously good at not covering spreads when it is the favorite team, so I think it'd be a win, but not by that much.
Okay.
It'd be a lot closer than 6.5.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep this going with you guys as well. I am going with Atlanta this week. Next game, we have the Giants hosting Chicago. They are giving Chicago 13.5. We're going to go with you again, Mitch.
Chicago. If this was New York Jets, I might think differently. But
Giants.
yeah, I know the Giants are. They're having some trouble on defense as well this year, and I think Chicago's geared up for a run. So I'm going with Chicago.
Okay. Dean, what do you got?
Yeah, some years the Giants have pulled that off and beaten Chicago. But the way I'm seeing things now, I'm not sure I'm much more confident in the Giants defense than in my own defense. And I think coming off the 2-2 start, Chicago is, I think, very determined to put as many wins on that column before they take another loss. I think the Cardinals will win and cover the spread in this game.
Okay.
Mark, I think what Dean is saying is Chicago is on a mission.
Yep. So I think so. Let me see here. Chicago.
Oh, you flipped your two-sided. You flipped your one-sided coin.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or whatever it is.
Pretty
Okay,
much.
okay.
Had to kind of keep that one out there hanging for a little bit. Next game we have Las Vegas hosting New Orleans. They are giving New Orleans 4.5. Dean.
Yeah, as much as I might want to say this could be a close game, it's only a 4.5-point spread. I think the Saints will find a way to win. We may even see a classic case of the Raiders leading in the first half and their offense collapses in the second half, and the Saints come back and win, come from behind, and probably win by, I don't know, 5 or 6 points, maybe a couple of goals. This would be a Saints win, though.
Okay. Mitch.
Well, I think if he could do what he did this past week, average 20 yards a completion, I think it's the Saints all day. I don't know if he'll do that, but I agree. I agree with Dean. I think the Saints will keep marching. I like the Saints. I like the Saints. They're my Minnesota Vikings of the NFC West.
There you go. I'm gonna keep that going with you guys. I am taking New Orleans to take this victory as well. Next game. San Francisco hosting the winless Seahawks. They are giving San Francisco 9.5. Mitch.
Well, again, as I have worked with the newsroom at PNFL News, kind of analyzing, breaking this game down, what I learned is that when Seattle, plays in the state of California in the month of October, their record is not very good. And so I'm going to go with San Francisco this week.
All right. Dean, what do you got?
I'm throwing all of that out. I think change is coming to the Pacific Northwest. I think this Seahawks will get some of these issues worked out that they're challenged by. And, at minimum, the 49ers are also good at not covering spreads when they're favored. And sometimes they can lose a close game when this happens. And I'm predicting this here might only be by 2 or 3 points, but I'm predicting a close, hard-fought, tough Seahawks win.
All right. Um, Coming straight from the Seahawks front office, telling the fans, hey, we're going to get this thing right. We're back at it again in the lab. We've made some changes with our OC and DC. So we're expecting better results because we fired both of those two because the coach threw them under the bus. So we're going with the Hawks this week. Seattle this week. Go Hawks. Last game we have.
You got to throw them under the bus because you don't want to be under it yourself.
Exactly. Isn't that what coaches do? You throw the DC and the OC under the bus. Even the special teams coach, throw him under the bus too.
That's right.
So last game that we have this week, we have KC hosting the upstart Shuggy Anaheim Rams, but they are giving KC 10.5. Dean.
Well, I'm throwing a lot of things out here as well, and I think those who want to underestimate Shuggy are going to do exactly what he wants you to do to underestimate him. And I know this guy, and I've played against him in the old leagues, and he can come up with some stuff, and he can do things, and he's doing it this weekend. It's going to be an upset win. The Rams are going to win. The Chiefs are going to.
Wow.
And put a lead pipe lock on it.
Oh, you going with Anaheim, huh? Okay. Are you moving your lead pipe lock from New England down to Anaheim?
No, I'm sticking with the Patriots on that one, but this is like close number 2 candidate for a lead pipe lock.
Ah. All right, Coach Grawl, what's going on over here? What you got?
Yeah. Imagine that, Dean picking me to lose. I don't think he's picked me to win but once in 3 seasons. But no, I'm sure that Anaheim is going to bring their best. They have won 3 games already in their PNFL debut, so obviously they've figured out a way to put together some winning combinations. I'm sure it's going to be a tough game, and the Red Nation will have to carry us through there at home. So that's what I'm going to bet on, that the Red Nation is going to come out. There's also my understanding that Taylor Swift will be in attendance.
Uh-huh.
So for all you Swifties out there, feel free to make sure you watch the game this week. But we'll see how it goes.
All
The game
right.
is over. Go blue in this game. This is going to be all blue.
Yeah.
Blue
uh,
defeats.
I'm gonna go ahead and as we wrap this up, I'm gonna go ahead and go with Kansas City on this. Shuggy has started out awesome, but I think coaches are starting to pick up on him, and I know that Mitch is very meticulous in how he scouts teams, and I think if Shuggy's not on point, Mitch is going to expose all of that. So I'm going with KC on this one. So as we come to wrap up this week's show, we are not going to be doing a special analysis or a special play-by-play this week or next week. I have some personal things that's going on, and I will not be available during that time because of the way the events I have going on, how they kind of factor in. So we'll be taking a 2-week hiatus of doing the play-by-play calling, but we will be back the week after. What is that? Looking at the calendar, we will be back on I'd say the 9th of November. We will be back to doing our play-by-play again. So I know you guys like those, but there's some things that just can't be controlled, so it has to be done.
So basically, what you're telling everybody is they've got a couple of weeks for them to look at their schedule and send a request to the game of the week.
Exactly. You guys got plenty of time. So I know that there's been some feedback, and I think if you guys have heard, it's been pretty much positive from our play calling. I think we had some real good games that we called, enough to get some people kind of amped up, especially, Mitch almost having a heart attack. So, but just wanted to give you guys.
Were you about to call 911 at that point?
Do what now?
Say what now?
Were you about to call 911 at that point?
Yeah, I had 911 in the phone. All I had to do was press send.
Hey, that was pretty tame. When I'm by myself, I get a little more animated than that.
Okay, so, we'll have to put a hidden mic in there next time.
Yeah.
Did you take your blood pressure after that game?
Oh man, it was good stuff, man. Good
yes,
stuff.
It was.
Oh yeah, when you put in the time, you want to see you get into these you get into the game. So
yeah, hey, that was a good start to it. So, all right. So as we make our
so go look at our profile though and see what we're doing in the last 15 seconds of the game.
Yeah. So, as we come to wrap this up for this week's show, we're going to hit this table one more time. Dean, what do you got? Final words.
Yeah, this was a tough week for a lot of teams, and let's see how they rebound this coming week.
All right. Mitch, what do you got?
Well, I'm looking to break my 2-game losing streak, get that bad taste out of my mouth. But I think we got it set up and ready to go for a good slate of games. So next thing to do is let's get it.